The howl tore from my throat before I could stop it, a sound so raw it split the frozen Montana air like a blade. 60 humans scattered as I burst from the tree line, snow exploding beneath my paws. Their screams meant nothing. The guns pointing at my chest meant nothing. Only the small white coffin mattered, the one draped in that starred flag, the one they were about to lower into frozen ground 6 feet deep. I hit the coffin at full speed, claws scraping white paint, and pressed my ear against the wood. There, faint as a whisper, 8 heartbeats per minute. Still alive, barely. I lifted my head and locked eyes with the man in black, Robert Miller, her uncle, the one who'd let this happen. My message was simple: open it, now, or watch her die for real. His face went white as the snow around us. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments, along with the city you're watching from now. Let's continue with the story. I wasn't always called Shadow. For 8 years before that July afternoon when a 6-year-old girl gave me a name, I was nothing. Just a gray wolf the pack had thrown away like spoiled meat. My father was Omega, the weakest wolf in the Frozen Creek pack. My mother was Alpha female, and that combination should have killed me before I drew breath. But I survived, born in a winter so cold the pine trees cracked like gunshots. I came out different, a white stripe running down my spine, a genetic flaw from my albino grandfather. In the wolf world, different means dead. They tolerated me for 6 months. Then the alpha male cornered my father by the frozen creek and tore his throat out while the pack watched. 2 months later, they came for me. I still carry the scars across my muzzle where my own mother stood silent as her pack drove me into the wilderness. I should have died within weeks. Lone wolves don't survive Montana winters, but I learned something the pack never taught me. I learned to watch humans. For 8 years I lived in the spaces between their world and mine. Too wolf to trust people, too scarred by wolves to return to the wild. I survived by being invisible, by studying the two-legged creatures from shadows, by understanding their patterns better than they understood themselves. That's how I knew Captain Michael Reynolds was different. I first saw him on a summer evening 2 years ago, sitting beside Frozen Creek with his head in his hands. He wore that green uniform with its patches and medals, and he was crying. Not the quiet tears humans try to hide, the kind that shake a man's whole body. He held a photograph. Even from 30 yards away, my wolf eyes saw it clearly. A beautiful woman with dark hair and a small blonde girl, maybe 4 years old. He talked to the picture like it could hear him. "Sarah, I don't know how to do this alone. How do I raise Lily without you? How do I leave her and go to Afghanistan?" The wind shifted. He caught my scent, turned fast like a soldier would. Our eyes met across the clearing, his blue and grieving, mine amber and cautious. He didn't reach for a weapon, didn't shout, just looked at me with recognition I didn't understand until much later. "You're alone too, aren't you, boy?" I should have run. Instead, I sat down. Something in his voice, broken but kind, made me stay. He stood slowly, left something on a rock, then walked away. After he disappeared, I crept forward. Beef jerky, still warm from his pocket. That night, for the first time in 8 years, I wasn't completely alone. 4 months later, he was dead. But his daughter, the little girl from the photograph, she would become my reason for everything. The butterfly had orange wings that caught the July sunlight like stained glass. I watched the little blonde girl, 6 years old, wearing a pink jacket, follow it off the hiking trail, her small voice calling back to the adults. "Uncle Robert, look at the pretty butterfly." But Robert Miller and his wife Patricia were arguing about which path to take, their voices sharp in that way humans get when they're saying one thing but meaning another. The girl kept walking, following those orange wings deeper into the pines. By the time she realized the voices had faded, she was alone. I'd been tracking them for an hour, curious about the child who smelled like vanilla and milk and something else, something familiar I couldn't quite place. When she stopped walking and her breathing quickened with fear, I moved closer. "Uncle Robert?" Her voice cracked. "Aunt Patricia?" Only wind through branches answered her. She sat down against a lodgepole pine, pulled her knees to her chest, and started to cry. Soft at first, then harder. The temperature was dropping. It would hit 45 degrees after sunset, and that pink jacket was too thin. I'd seen hypothermia kill grown men in these mountains. I should have stayed hidden. Wolves don't approach crying children. But something about her, the way she hugged herself, the way she looked so small against that massive tree, pulled me forward. I stopped 30 feet away. Her head snapped up, tears streaking her face. Her eyes went wide, blue eyes, like the soldier by the creek, and I braced for the scream. It never came. She stared at me, and I stared back. 95 pounds of gray wolf, scarred muzzle, amber eyes that had seen too much. I looked exactly like what I was. Dangerous. "You look brave," she whispered. "Like my dad said wolves are. He told me wolves are loyal and strong. Before he went to heaven." Something in my chest tightened. That familiar scent. I knew it now. She smelled like him. Like the soldier who'd left me beef jerky. Like Captain Michael Reynolds. This was his daughter. The girl from the photograph. Her hand trembled as she reached into her pocket, pulled out a granola bar. The wrapper crinkled loud in the quiet forest. "Are you hungry? I was saving this, but you can have half." She broke it, held out a piece. Her hand shook so hard crumbs fell in the pine needles. I could have taken the whole thing, could have knocked her down without trying. Instead, I walked forward slowly, lowered my head, and took the granola bar as gently as I knew how. Our eyes met at close range, hers full of fear and hope, mine probably full of confusion. "You're beautiful," she said, "like a snow angel, but gray." I ate the granola bar. It tasted like oats and honey and something else. Kindness. I hadn't tasted kindness in 8 years. "I'm scared," she admitted, fresh tears coming. "It's getting dark, and I don't know which way home is." I looked at her, then at the darkening sky, then back at her. In that moment, I made a choice that would change everything. I turned and started walking. After 10 steps, I stopped and looked back. She understood. Children are smarter than adults that way. "You'll show me?" Her voice lifted with hope. "You'll help me?" I waited. She stood up on shaky legs and followed. For 2 hours, I led her through forest only wolves know, along game trails too narrow for most humans to spot, around the ravine where a grizzly had her den, past the creek where cougars hunted at dusk. Every time she stumbled over roots, I stopped. Every time she needed to rest, I sat and waited. When she climbed over a fallen log too high for her short legs, I circled back with what I hoped looked encouraging. "What's your name?" she asked during one rest stop. "You should have a name." I couldn't answer, but I watched her with what I hoped she'd read as patience. "I'm going to call you Shadow," she decided, "because you're like a shadow that protects me. A guardian shadow." Shadow. In 8 years I'd had no name. Now I had one, given by a child who'd shared her food and trusted me when she had no reason to. I heard voices ahead. Robert shouting her name, Patricia's sharper tone cutting through the dusk. We were close. I stopped at the tree line, 50 yards from where flashlight beams swept the trail. She turned to me and, without warning, threw her small arms around my neck. I froze. No one had touched me with gentleness since my mother stopped defending me. "Thank you, Shadow. Will you visit me?" I licked her hand, just once, then melted back into the darkness before the adults could see. Behind me, I heard Robert's relieved shout. "Lily, where have you been?" "A gray wolf helped me." Her voice rang with truth. "He led me home." "Honey, wolves don't help people. Wolves don't help. You must have found your own way." But I knew, and she knew, and that was enough. That night, I found food at the forest edge where she'd left it. A sandwich wrapped in paper, with a note in crayon I couldn't read. From that moment on, I wasn't alone anymore. Neither was she. We just didn't know yet how desperately she would need me. The red envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning in late October. I watched through the kitchen window as Robert Miller opened it at the table, his hands shaking so badly the paper rattled. His face went from pale to gray in the space of a heartbeat. Patricia stood at the stove, her back rigid. "Well?" 30 days, his voice barely carried across the room. $220,000 or they take the farm. The coffee mug slipped from her hand, shattered on the floor. Neither of them moved to clean it. I could smell the fear rolling off them even through the glass, sharp and acrid like metal and sweat. 5 generations, Robert whispered. "My grandfather cleared these fields. My father died on that tractor. James and I learned to ride horses in that barn, and I'm losing it because I was stupid, because I gambled, because I borrowed from the wrong people." Patricia turned slowly. In the weak morning light, she looked carved from ice. "There's Lily's trust fund. Lily's—" "Jesus Christ, Patricia." Robert stood so fast his chair crashed backward. "That's my niece. That's Sarah's daughter. That's $2.3 million. Her voice was flat, empty of everything except calculation. If something happened to Lily before she turned 18, it would go to her legal guardians, to us. I'd been watching the Miller household for 3 months by then, ever since Lily started leaving food for me. I'd learned their patterns, their voices, their moods. But this was different. This was wrong in a way that made every hair on my back stand up. "I won't even discuss this." Robert grabbed his jacket. "Lily is family. James was my brother-in-law. He saved my life when we were kids. Pulled me out of Little Bear Creek when I was drowning. I owe him everything. James is dead." Patricia's words fell like stones. "And he let our son die." Robert froze at the door. "What?" "Danny. In Afghanistan. James was his commanding officer. When Danny got hit, when he was bleeding out, James chose to save 2 other soldiers instead. He let our 19-year-old son call for his father while he bled to death in the sand." I watched Robert's shoulders sag. This was a wound I hadn't known about, festering beneath the surface. "Michael made a tactical decision," Robert said, but his voice had no strength. "He saved 3 lives. Danny's wounds were—" were survivable if someone had tried. Patricia's control cracked. I heard the medics report. Danny had 8 minutes. 8 minutes when pressure on that artery might have saved him. But Michael Reynolds decided 3 strangers were worth more than our son. The silence stretched long enough for me to hear a crow calling from the ridge. And now, Patricia continued, her voice dropping to something cold and dark, Michael's daughter gets to live. She gets money, a future, everything, while our Danny is in the ground, while my womb is empty. What are you talking about? 3 miscarriages, Robert. 3. After Danny died, my body rejected every pregnancy. The doctor said stress, trauma. I could have had 3 more children. Instead, I have nothing. And Lily Bennett has everything. Robert stared at his wife like he was seeing a stranger. You're talking about killing a child. I'm talking about justice, about balance, about the fact that we're losing our home in 30 days while Michael Reynolds' daughter sits on a fortune she can't even touch until she's 18. She's 6 years old. So were our babies, the ones I lost, the ones I'll never hold. Patricia's hands curved over her flat stomach. Every time I look at Lily, I see the children I should have. Every time she laughs, I hear the silence in our house. Tell me that's fair, Robert. Tell me God's plan makes any sense. I didn't understand all the words, but I understood grief. I understood how pain could turn rancid, could poison everything it touched. I'd seen it in the pack when wolves lost their mates, saw how some went mad with it. Robert walked out without another word. I heard his truck start, heard gravel spray as he tore down the driveway. Through the window, I watched Patricia stand motionless in the kitchen for 10 minutes before she picked up the phone. 2 weeks later, I followed her to the hospital parking lot. It was 10 at night, 15 degrees below zero, and she stood in the shadows waiting. A man approached, older, moving with the exhaustion of someone carrying an impossible weight. I crept close enough to hear, hidden behind a dumpster that reeked of medical waste. Dr. Cole, Patricia's greeting was businesslike. Mrs. Miller, what's this about? His voice was wary. I know about Emma, about her leukemia, about the experimental treatment that insurance won't cover. I watched the man, Dr. Harrison Cole, I'd learn later, go rigid. How do you... Small town. Everyone knows everything. She pulled an envelope from her coat. $75,000. Cash. Right now. Another $50,000 when the job is done. What job? Patricia stepped closer, her breath fogging in the freezing air. You're the family doctor for the Millers and the Bennetts. You've treated Lily since she was 3. You're trusted, respected. Get to the point. Make Lily Bennett sick. Make it look natural. Make it look like her heart failed. Then sign the death certificate immediately. No autopsy. No questions. The silence that followed felt like the moment before lightning strikes. You're asking me to murder a child, Dr. Cole said flatly. I'm offering you a way to save your daughter. You need $200,000 for Emma's treatment. You have gambling debts of $120,000. That's $320,000 total. I'm offering $125,000 plus I'll pay off your debts. $245,000. Not quite enough, but closer than you'll ever get otherwise. I'm a doctor. I took an oath. Emma has 3 months. Maybe. You've been praying for a miracle. I'm offering you one. Dr. Cole's breath came faster, visible in the cold air. Why? Why do you want Lily dead? Because Michael Reynolds killed my son and walked away a hero. Because his daughter gets to live while mine is buried. Because sometimes the only justice we get is the justice we take. I didn't need to understand every word to know what I was hearing. Humans were planning to hurt Lily, the child who'd named me, the child who left me food and called me her friend. Dr. Cole stood silent for what felt like hours. Finally, his shoulders dropped in defeat. God forgive me. When do we start? Tomorrow. I have the digitoxin, small doses in her milk, 10 days to weaken her heart. Then one final dose. It'll look like congenital heart failure. Children die of it all the time. They shook hands, a gesture I'd seen humans make when they agreed on things, and Patricia handed over the envelope. I wanted to attack, wanted to tear into them both for what they were planning. But I knew what would happen. I'd be shot. Lily would have no protection, no warning. So instead, I followed Patricia home and began my vigil in earnest. If they were going to hurt Lily, they'd have to go through me first. I just had to figure out how to warn her when I couldn't speak. The first drop of poison went into Lily's milk on December 20th, a Monday morning so cold the windows had frost flowers blooming on the glass. I watched from my position beneath the pine trees, my breath coming in silver clouds, as Patricia stood at the kitchen counter with a small brown bottle. 3 drops. She counted them carefully, her hand steady, stirred the milk with a spoon, set the glass on the table just as Lily came downstairs in her school clothes, blonde hair still messy from sleep. "Good morning, sweetheart. Drink your milk before the bus comes." Lily drank it all, said thank you, grabbed her backpack and ran for the yellow bus idling at the end of the driveway. I followed through the forest, running parallel to the road for 12 miles into town, watching her through the windows. She looked tired already, rubbing her eyes. I didn't understand poison then, didn't know what digitoxin was or how it worked, but I knew the smell was wrong, bitter and chemical beneath the sweet milk. And I knew Patricia's face when Lily wasn't looking, satisfied, calculating, like a wolf watching wounded prey. By day 3, Lily could barely walk straight, getting off the school bus. I watched her stumble up the driveway, one hand pressed to her chest. That afternoon she came to the forest edge like always, but instead of smiling and chattering about her day, she collapsed on the frozen ground and cried. "Shadow, I feel so weird, like I can't breathe right, like my heart is beating wrong." I emerged from the trees, something I rarely did in daylight, and lay down beside her. She buried her face in my fur, and I felt her tears soak through to my skin. Her heartbeat against my side was exactly what she said. Wrong. Too slow. Irregular, like a drum with a broken head. Aunt Patricia says it's just a cold. But Shadow, I'm scared. What if I'm really sick? What if I'm dying like Mommy did? I licked her face, tasting salt and fear. It was all I could do, all I had to give her. Presence, warmth, the promise that she wasn't alone. But it wasn't enough. Nothing I did could stop what was happening inside her body. "Promise you won't leave me?" Her small hands gripped my fur. "You're my only real friend. Everyone at school thinks I'm weird because I don't have parents. Uncle Robert is always sad and drunk. Aunt Patricia looks at me like she wishes I wasn't there. But you chose to be my friend. Promise, Shadow?" I pressed my forehead to hers, a gesture I'd seen wolves use with their packmates, a promise without words. Whatever happened, I wouldn't abandon her. But I felt helpless in a way I'd never experienced. Against hunger, cold, predators. Those things I could fight. Against invisible poison in her blood, I had no weapons. On day 7, I followed her school bus in the early morning darkness. The bus stopped to pick her up, and I watched from the tree line as she climbed the steps, moving like an old woman. Halfway up, her legs buckled. She caught herself on the railing, and the bus driver, a man named Walter with kind eyes, helped her to a seat. "You okay, honey? You look pale." "I'm fine, Mr. Harmon. Just tired." But she wasn't fine. Through the bus windows I saw her lean her head against the glass, eyes closing. I ran, keeping pace with the bus through the forest, my paws pounding frozen earth, my breath burning in my lungs. 12 miles to Whitefish Elementary School. I'd made this run 100 times, but never with this urgency clawing at my chest. The bus pulled into the school parking lot. Children poured out, laughing and shoving. Lily was the last one off, moving so slowly that her teacher, a young woman named Mrs. Patterson, came to meet her. "Lily, sweetheart, are you feeling well?" "My chest hurts, Mrs. Patterson." "Let's get you to the nurse." Lily collapsed, just folded in on herself like a paper doll, hitting the cold pavement before anyone could catch her. Mrs. Patterson screamed. Children scattered. I wanted to run to her, but I was 100 yards away behind a chain-link fence, and half a dozen adults were already surrounding her. The ambulance came with sirens that hurt my ears. They loaded Lily onto a stretcher, put a mask over her face, and drove away with lights flashing. I ran after it, following that high-pitched wail through town to Whitefish Regional Hospital. For 6 hours I lay in the snow beneath a window near the emergency room. Medical staff walked past, their shoes crunching. Some glanced at me. None tried to make me leave. One nurse, an older woman with gray hair, brought me water in a bowl. "I don't know why you're here, Wolf," she said softly, "but you look like you're keeping vigil. My husband's dog did that when he was sick. Animals know things we don't." Through the window I heard fragments of conversation. Heart rate 45. Blood pressure 80/50. Lips are cyanotic. "Get Dr. Cole." Robert arrived in his truck, tires squealing. He ran inside looking terrified, genuinely terrified. Whatever Patricia had told him, he didn't know the truth. He thought his niece was dying of natural causes. Patricia arrived 20 minutes later, walking slowly, her face blank. She stood in the parking lot for a full minute before going inside. Even from a distance I could read her body language. No surprise, no panic. Just waiting. Inside that hospital, Dr. Cole was examining the child he was being paid to kill. The contradiction should have destroyed him. Maybe it did, in ways I couldn't see. They kept Lily for 2 days. I didn't leave the hospital grounds, slept in 4-hour shifts, always with one ear tuned to the building. Nurses started bringing me food, scraps from the cafeteria. A security guard named Jack, who smelled like old cigarettes and kindness, sat with me one night. "You're loyal, aren't you, boy? I saw dogs like you in Vietnam, military working dogs. They'd die before they'd leave their handlers." He studied me in the dim light from the parking lot. "You're too big for a dog, though. Too wild around the eyes. But you got the same look, that protective look. Who's in there that you're guarding?" I couldn't tell him, could only lay my head on my paws and wait. On the 2nd day, Dr. Cole released Lily to go home. I heard him tell Robert, "Her heart is weak, some kind of congenital defect we missed. She needs rest, monitoring. I'll check on her at home." Hospital stays are expensive, and honestly, she'll be more comfortable in her own bed. Translation, though I didn't fully understand it then. Get her home so we can finish the job. Robert carried Lily to the truck. She looked so small in his arms, her blonde hair lank, her lips tinged blue. As they drove past my hiding spot, her head turned. Through the truck window, our eyes met for just a second. She smiled, weak but real, and mouthed something that looked like my name. I followed them home, running through the forest. Faster than necessary, my old injury from years ago starting to ache in my left hind leg. But I couldn't stop, wouldn't stop. That night I positioned myself directly beneath Lily's bedroom window. The glass was old, single pane, and I could hear everything. Here, sweetheart. Dr. Cole says this medicine will help your heart. Patricia's voice, falsely gentle. It tastes funny. I know, but you need to drink it all. The sound of swallowing. Then Lily's small voice. Aunt Patricia, do you love me? A pause that stretched too long. Of course I do, honey. Now get some sleep. But I heard what Lily didn't, the crack in Patricia's voice, the catch that meant she was lying, or that the truth was more complicated than she wanted it to be. Maybe Patricia did love Lily, in some twisted way. Maybe that made what she was doing even worse. Through the window, I watched Lily's light go out. Listened to her breathing slow, her heartbeat deepen into sleep. She was still alive, still fighting, though she didn't know what she was fighting against. I settled into the snow, ignoring the cold seeping into my bones. The temperature dropped to -15. Wind cut through the valley like a knife. My old injury throbbed. I was hungry, hadn't eaten properly in 3 days. None of it mattered. Somewhere in that hospital parking lot, Patricia and Dr. Cole had agreed on a timeline. Somewhere in that brown bottle was a final dose that would stop Lily's heart for good. I didn't know when, didn't know how much time we had, but I knew I couldn't stop it from inside that house. All I could do was watch and wait and hope that when the moment came, I'd know what to do. The moon rose over the mountains, full and cold. I lifted my head and howled, soft enough not to wake the house, but loud enough to tell Lily, if she could somehow hear me in her dreams, that she wasn't alone. A promise without words. I'm here, I won't leave. Whatever comes, I'll fight for you, even if it kills me. Robert Miller buried his daughter in the barn on January 13th, but not the way you'd think. I watched through the gap in the boards as he sat in the hayloft at 2 a.m, clutching photographs of a young man in Marine uniform, Danny, their son, who died 3 years ago in Afghanistan. The whiskey bottle beside him was half empty, and Robert was crying the way men cry when they think no one can see. Harsh, broken sounds like something dying. I'm sorry, Danny. I'm so sorry. He pressed the photo to his chest. Michael tried to save you. I know he did. But you were my boy, my only boy. And now Lily's sick, and I can't. God, I can't lose anyone else. He had no idea. No idea that his wife had engineered everything, that the niece he was mourning wasn't sick by chance, but by design. I wanted to crash through that barn door, make him understand somehow, but he'd only see a wolf, only see danger. So I stayed hidden and watched a broken man destroy himself with grief and whiskey while his wife plotted murder in the house 50 yards away. The next morning, January 13th, 3 days before the funeral, Patricia made the call that would seal everything. I was beneath the kitchen window when I heard her phone conversation. Milton, And son's funeral home? Yes. I need to arrange a service for my niece, Lily Bennett. She passed away last night. Congenital heart failure. A pause. Yes, very sudden. Very tragic. We'd like the funeral in 3 days. Family tradition, military family. We don't believe in long waiting periods. Thursday morning, Whitefish Memorial Cemetery. Another pause. A child's coffin. White. And we'll need the American flag. Her father was Captain Michael Reynolds, Marines. Died in Afghanistan. She hung up. Through the window, I watched her stand at the sink, staring at nothing. For just a moment, her reflection in the window showed something like regret. Then she blinked, and her face went blank again. That afternoon, the hearse came to collect Lily's body from the hospital morgue. I followed it through town, keeping to alleys and shadows. The vehicle pulled into Milton and Sons at 4 p.m., backing up to a service entrance. 2 men in dark suits wheeled a gurney inside. I waited until dark, until the funeral home lights went out and the last car left the parking lot. Then I found a window the attendants had left cracked for air. Humans always underestimate how small a space a wolf can squeeze through. I dislocated my shoulder, pushed through, and dropped into a preparation room that smelled of flowers and chemicals. The coffin sat on a wheeled table, small, white, exactly as Patricia had ordered. The lid was closed, but not yet sealed. That would happen tomorrow before the wake at the Miller house. I approached on silent pause, every sense screaming that something was wrong with this. Wrong with seeing Lily in a box. Wrong with the stillness of it. I lifted my front paws to the coffin's edge and pressed my ear to the wood, and heard it. Thump, thump, pause, 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 thump. 6 heartbeats per minute. Barely anything, barely life, but not death. I pressed my nose to the seam where the lid met the base, drawing in air through the gap. Lily's scent, vanilla and milk and something else now, something medicinal and wrong. But beneath it all, the living smell. Sweat. The faint exhale of breath. Body temperature at 88 degrees, cold but not corpse cold. She was alive. They were going to bury her alive. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I backed away from the coffin, my mind racing through limited options. Dr. Cole had signed the death certificate. I'd heard Patricia mention it on the phone. No autopsy necessary. Family physician confirmed natural causes. The system believed Lily was dead. In 3 days they would lower her into frozen ground, 6 feet deep, and seal a tomb around her while her heart still beat its desperate 6 times per minute. I had 3 days to make humans understand something impossible, that their eyes and their doctors and their death certificates were all wrong. 3 days to bridge the gap between wolf and human, between instinct and reason. I tried everything. The next morning, Tuesday, January 14th, I ran to the Miller house and scratched at the front door. Not aggressive, just persistent. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Robert opened it, saw me, and his face went purple with rage. "You! You're that wolf that's been hanging around. Get out of here. My niece is dead and you... Get out!" He slammed the door so hard the frame shook. I heard him inside, cursing and crying. I tried the sheriff's office next, sat outside the door and howled, not aggressive, not threatening, just mournful and insistent. A deputy named Tom Hayes came out, hand on his gun. "Jesus, a wolf in town! Shoo! Get back to the mountains!" He fired his gun in the air. I ran. At Dr. Cole's office, I positioned myself in the parking lot where he'd have to see me. When he came out at lunch, he froze. Our eyes met. I saw fear flash across his face, the guilty recognition of being watched by something that knew. He backed into his office and locked the door. Through the window, I watched him pace, pull at his hair, make frantic phone calls. But he didn't confess, just hid. By Tuesday evening, I was desperate. The funeral home had delivered Lily's coffin to the Miller house for the traditional one-day home wake. Montana custom. Family and close friends pay respects with the body present in the home. 20 people filed through the living room where the white coffin sat closed on a table, American flag draped across it. I crept close to the house after dark, positioned myself beneath the window. Inside, I could hear hushed conversations. So young. Heart defect, they said. Poor Robert. First his son, now his niece. Patricia's holding up remarkably well. And Patricia's voice, flat and emotionless. We are grateful for your support. Lily's at peace now. But she wasn't at peace. She was dying by inches in that closed box, her heart slowing, her body shutting down from lack of oxygen and the poison still in her system. I calculated, though I'm not sure how I knew, maybe 36 hours until her heart stopped for real. The funeral was scheduled for 10 a.m. Thursday, 18 hours from now. I had no more ideas, no more strategies. The humans wouldn't listen, couldn't listen. They saw me as threat, as animal, as anything except what I was, the only one who knew the truth. That night, I made a decision. If they wouldn't listen before the funeral, I'd make them listen at the funeral, in front of witnesses, in front of the whole town. I'd interrupt the burial, force them to open the coffin, and if they shot me for it, well, better me dead and Lily saved than both of us lost. I slept that night 50 yards from the Miller house, my head on my paws, watching the windows. In one of them, Lily's old bedroom, the light stayed off. They'd probably already cleaned it out, already erased her. But she wasn't erased. Not yet. Not while her heart still beat. I dreamed of running through the forest with Lily on a summer day, both of us laughing, though I'd never heard her laugh that freely. And wolves don't laugh. In the dream, she wore flowers in her hair and kept shouting, "Faster, Shadow! Faster!" And we were fast, impossibly fast, running toward something bright and warm just beyond the trees. I woke to pre-dawn cold, January 15th. Funeral day. My leg ached where the old injury lived deep in the bone, a reminder of things I'd survived before. I'd survive this too. Or I wouldn't. Either way, I'd fight. As the sun rose over the Rockies, painting the snow pale pink, I began the long run toward Whitefish Memorial Cemetery. I needed to scout the location, understand the terrain, plan my approach. In 6 hours, they'd try to bury Lily Bennett alive. In 6 hours, I'd stop them or die trying. The cold morning air filled my lungs as I ran, and I felt something I hadn't felt in 8 years of lonely survival. Purpose. Lily had given me a name, given me friendship, given me a reason to be more than just a rejected wolf waiting to die. Now I'd give her the only thing I had left to give. Everything. The funeral began at 10 a.m. under a sky the color of old iron. I watched from Pine Ridge, 300 yards above Whitefish Memorial Cemetery, as the black cars crawled up the snow-plowed road like a funeral procession of ants. 60 people, maybe more, all dressed in dark coats that made them look like ravens against the white landscape. The temperature had dropped to 22 below zero. Wind chill made it feel like 40 below. 4 feet of snow blanketed the cemetery, pushed into walls on either side of the cleared paths. The kind of cold that kills exposed skin in minutes, that turns breath to ice crystals in your lungs. Perfect weather for a burial. Terrible weather for what I was about to do. Lily's small white coffin sat on canvas straps over the open grave, a dark mouth in the frozen earth. The gravediggers had worked for 2 days with pickaxes and a backhoe to break through ground frozen solid as concrete, 6 feet deep. Once that coffin went down, once they shoveled the first load of dirt, there'd be no getting her out in time. I could smell Lily from 300 yards away. My wolf nose, 100 times more sensitive than human, caught her scent on the wind. Vanilla and milk, but fading, dying. Her heartbeat. I couldn't hear it from this distance, but I knew from this morning's pass by the funeral home that it had dropped to 4 beats per minute. She had 2 hours, maybe less. Through the crowd, I identified the key people. Robert Miller, weeping openly, supported by 2 men I didn't recognize. Patricia Miller, standing rigid, her face a mask. Not a single tear. Pastor Williams in his black robes, Bible in hand, beginning the service. Sheriff David Parks, thankfully, standing near the back in civilian clothes, off duty but present. And one person I hadn't expected, an elderly woman in the back row, standing alone, her silver hair bright against her dark coat. Something about her posture, the way she watched the coffin with a grief that seemed personal, made me take notice. I didn't know then that she was Evelyn Brooks, Lily's grandmother. I only knew she looked at that coffin like she was losing something precious. Pastor Williams' voice carried up the hill, made thin by distance and wind. We gather to mourn Lily Ann Bennett, taken from us too soon by the mysterious ways of the Lord. I began my descent. Slowly at first, picking my way through deep snow and between pines, every step sent ice crystals cascading. My injured leg protested, the old bullet fragment shifting in the bone. I'd survived 8 winters with this pain. I could survive one more sprint. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. That was my cue. The words that meant they were about to lower the coffin. I launched myself down the hillside at full speed, 40 miles per hour, faster than any human could run, faster than most could even process. Snow exploded beneath my paws. Pine branches slapped my face. The wind screamed in my ears. Or maybe that was me screaming. A war cry from a wolf who'd been silent too long. The first person to see me was a young boy, maybe 8 years old. "Mommy, look! A wolf!" His voice pierced the funeral like a knife. Heads turned. People saw a 95-pound gray wolf charging down the hillside straight toward them like a missile with teeth. The reaction was instant and primal, screaming, chaos. People running in all directions, slipping on ice, falling into snowdrifts. A woman went down hard, pulling 2 others with her. Children sobbed. Men shouted, "Get back! Protect the kids! Someone shoot it!" Robert Miller's voice rose above the others. "Shoot it! Someone shoot that beast!" I saw a hunter, heavy-set man in his 50s, reach for the rifle slung over his shoulder, saw Sheriff Parks grab his arm. "Wait! Hold your fire!" The sheriff's command voice cut through the panic. "It's running toward the coffin, not the people." And I was. My eyes locked on that small white box, the last thing standing between Lily and the grave. I hit the coffin at full speed, leaping, all 4 paws landing on the lid. The canvas straps groaned. The coffin rocked on its supports. Wood flexed under my weight but held. I began to dig, clawed at the white paint like I was digging for a buried meal. White flakes flew. Deep gouges appeared in the wood. My claws, meant for tearing meat and fighting rivals, scraped and scrabbled against the coffin lid, and I didn't care that I was destroying it. Didn't care that I was breaking every human rule about respecting the dead, because Lily wasn't dead. The crowd had gone silent. 60 people frozen in shock, watching a wolf claw desperately at a child's coffin. It must have looked insane. Must have looked like some rabid animal in its death throes. I stopped clawing and pressed my head against the coffin lid, right over where I knew Lily's heart would be. Closed my eyes. Listened with every fiber of my being. Thump. Nothing. 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 Thump. Still alive. Barely. But alive. I lifted my head and howled. Put everything I had into that sound. 8 years of loneliness, 3 months of watching Lily be poisoned, 2 weeks of helpless vigil, and all the desperate love a wolf could feel for a human child who'd given him a name and called him friend. The howl lasted 30 seconds, rising and falling, so mournful that I saw several people openly crying. When the howl died, the silence was absolute, except for wind through the pines. I turned my head and looked directly at Robert Miller. 30 feet away, his face pale as the snow, his eyes wide with something between terror and recognition. I held his gaze, tried to pour everything into that look. Your niece is alive. Open the coffin. Save her, please. It's looking at me like... Robert's voice shook. Like it knows something. Like it's trying to tell me something. It's rabid. Patricia's voice was sharp, panicked. It's a rabid wolf. Someone shoot it now before it attacks someone. But I heard the fear beneath her anger. The fear of being discovered. The elderly woman pushed through the crowd, walked straight toward me, toward a wild wolf standing on a coffin, without hesitation. People grabbed at her coat. Evelyn, get back! Mrs. Brooks, that's dangerous. Someone stop her! She ignored them all, walked right up to the coffin, close enough that I could have torn her throat out in one movement. Instead, I sat down, lowered my head, tried to look as non-threatening as a wolf can look while standing on a child's coffin. The woman, Evelyn, studied me with eyes that had seen too much grief to fear death. I'm 68 years old, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I've buried a husband, raised 4 children, worked 40 years as a nurse. I know death, I know grief, and I know desperation when I see it. She turned to face the crowd. This wolf is not attacking. It's not rabid. Look at it. It's begging. Evelyn, that's insane, someone called out. Is it? She turned back to me, and I saw tears on her weathered cheeks. My husband died in Vietnam in 1970, came home in a flag-draped coffin just like this one. We had a German shepherd named Sergeant. That dog wouldn't leave the coffin for 3 days, wouldn't eat, wouldn't drink, just laid beside it and whined. On the day of the burial, when we lowered my husband into the ground, Sergeant tried to jump in after him. We had to pull him back. He howled just like this wolf is howling. Her voice cracked. Because Sergeant knew. Dogs know. Wolves know. Animals know things we don't. They sense things we're too blind to see. She looked at Sheriff Parks. Open the coffin. Patricia pushed forward. You can't be serious. That's desecration of... If you're so certain Lily is dead, Evelyn interrupted, her voice steel, then opening the coffin proves nothing. But if you're afraid of what we'll find... She let the implication hang. Robert looked between his wife and Evelyn, confusion written on his face. Patricia, what is she talking about? She's a crazy old woman listening to a wolf. Patricia's voice rose to near hysteria. Don't let her... I saw you. Evelyn's words cut like a blade through ice. 2 weeks ago, January 2nd. 11 p.m. I couldn't sleep, was looking out my window. I saw you in your kitchen, Patricia. I saw you put something in a glass of milk. I saw you stir it. I saw Lily drink it. And I saw you hide the bottle afterward. The crowd erupted, voices overlapping, accusations flying, people backing away from Patricia like she carried disease. Patricia's face went white. "You're lying. You're a senile old woman who—" "Then let them open the coffin," Evelyn repeated. "If Lily died of natural causes, you have nothing to hide." Sheriff Parks made the decision. "Deputy Hayes, help me with the lid." "Tom, you can't." Patricia tried to push between them and the coffin. "I won't allow. I'm her legal guardian. You can't—" "Ma'am," the sheriff's voice was granite, "you can let us open it voluntarily, or I can get a court order. But this wolf's behavior, Mrs. Brooks' testimony, and your reaction have given me reasonable cause. Step back." I moved aside as the two men approached, watched as they undid the 4 latches. Click, 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 click. Each sound impossibly loud in the frozen air. The crowd pressed closer, 60 people holding their breath. The sheriff and deputy gripped the lid, lifted it slowly. Inside, Lily lay in a white dress, her hands folded across her chest, her blonde hair arranged around her face like a halo. She looked dead. Blue lips, gray skin, absolutely still. The crowd exhaled disappointment. "See?" Patricia's voice was triumphant. "She's dead! Now close it and—" But Evelyn had already pushed forward, was pressing 2 fingers to Lily's neck. Everyone fell silent, watching the old woman's face. 30 seconds passed. 40. A minute. Evelyn's eyes widened, her mouth opened. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "Oh my God!" Then louder. "She has a pulse. Faint. Maybe 5 beats a minute. But it's there. This child is alive." The cemetery exploded into chaos. People screaming, crying, praying. A woman fainted. Men shouted questions over each other. Sheriff Parks grabbed his radio, calling for an ambulance. "What?" Robert's voice was pure shock. "She's alive? How is she alive?" "The doctor said—" A woman in the crowd pushed forward. Dr. Sarah Chen, off-duty ER physician. "Let me check." She put her fingers to Lily's neck, listened to her chest with a stethoscope pulled from her coat pocket. Looked up with a face gone pale. "Evelyn's right. Weak pulse, very weak. Maybe 4 beats per minute. Breathing once every 30 seconds. Profound hypothermia. Body temperature feels around 88 degrees. This child is in some kind of suspended state, but she is definitely alive." She turned to Patricia with eyes like flint. "Who pronounced her dead?" Patricia backed away, her mouth working but no sound coming out. "Who?" Dr. Chen demanded. "Dr. Cole," someone in the crowd offered. "Dr. Harrison Cole. He signed the death certificate." "Where is Dr. Cole?" People looked around. A man in a dark coat at the back of the crowd, Dr. Cole, turned to run. 2 men grabbed him. "Doctor, you need to explain how you missed this," Sheriff Parks said, his voice dangerous. I jumped down from the coffin, approached it from the side, placed my head gently on Lily's arm, made a soft, whining sound, the sound wolves make when trying to wake a sleeping pack member. Lily's fingers twitched. The crowd gasped. Robert fell to his knees in the snow. "Lily? Baby?" Her eyelids fluttered, opened just slightly, unfocused, confused, barely conscious. Her eyes, those blue eyes like her father's, moved until they found me. Her lips, blue with cold, moved. One word, barely audible. Shadow. My tail wagged. First time in 2 weeks. Then her eyes closed again, and for a terrible moment I thought we'd lost her. But Dr. Chen checked her pulse again. Still there. Ambulance, now! Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. The ambulance arrived 4 minutes later, but I was already in motion. When Dr. Chen said Lily needed immediate warming, I lay down beside the coffin, pressed my body against hers. Wolves maintain a core temperature of 101 degrees, 6 degrees warmer than humans. Every degree mattered. The wolf it's trying to warm her, Dr. Chen said, wonder in her voice. Leave it. We need all the heat we can get. The paramedics loaded Lily onto a stretcher, wrapped her in thermal blankets, started an IV line. When they moved toward the ambulance, I followed. A paramedic blocked me. Sorry, boy. No animals in the... Let him come. Dr. Chen's voice cut through. That wolf saved her life. He's not leaving her now. They let me in. I lay beside the stretcher as the ambulance screamed through Whitefish, sirens splitting the frozen air. Lily's heartbeat was so faint I had to press my ear to her chest to hear it. 4 beats per minute, then 3, then 4 again, then 4, fighting to stay alive. At the hospital, they rushed her to ICU. I tried to follow, but security guards blocked the doors. No animals past this point. Hospital policy. I could have fought, could have forced my way through. Instead, I went to the window outside her room and lay down in the snow. Through the glass, I watched doctors and nurses swarm around her small body, watched machines get connected, watched heated IV bags get hung. For 5 days, I didn't move except to drink from puddles of melted snow. Nurses brought me food, scraps from the cafeteria, but I couldn't eat. My stomach was a knot of fear. Every time a doctor left Lily's room with a grave expression, every time a nurse wiped tears, I thought, too late. We saved her from being buried alive only to watch her die anyway. Jack Morrison, the security guard, sat with me on the 3rd night. He was 70, a Vietnam veteran with a face like weathered leather and kind eyes. I had a dog like you once in the war. German shepherd named Duke saved my life twice. Took a bullet meant for me. He lit a cigarette with shaking hands. You're not a dog, though, are you? You're Wolf. But you got the same look Duke had. That loyal look. That I'll die before I leave look. He was quiet for a moment. The little girl's grandmother, Mrs. Brooks, she's been asking about you. Says you're a hero. Says you knew what everyone else missed. He stubbed out his cigarette. Don't know how a wolf knows a thing like that. But I've seen enough strange things in my life to know that animals understand stuff we don't. On the 5th day, January 20th, the door to ICU opened and Dr. Chen emerged. She looked exhausted, her scrubs wrinkled, dark circles under her eyes. She saw me at the window and actually smiled. She's awake. She's asking for Shadow. I assume that's you? I stood so fast my injured leg nearly buckled. Come on, then. Let's break every hospital regulation in the book. She led me through sterile hallways that smelled of disinfectant and fear. Nurses stared. A doctor started to protest. Animals can't be in ICU. But Dr. Chen cut him off. This animal saved her life. He's earned the right to see her. Lily's room was small, filled with beeping machines and tubes and wires. She lay in the bed, tiny against white sheets, her blonde hair spread across the pillow. Her eyes were open. When I entered, they found me immediately. Shadow. Her voice was barely a whisper, hoarse from the breathing tube they'd had down her throat. You came. I approached the bed slowly. put my head on the mattress beside her hand. She moved her fingers, still weak, still trembling, and touched my fur. I knew you'd save me. In the dark, in the cold, I heard you howling. I heard you, and I knew I just had to hold on a little longer. Tears ran down her face. Aunt Patricia hurt me, didn't she? She gave me the medicine that made me sick. Dr. Chen knelt beside the bed. Knelt. Yes, sweetheart, but she can't hurt you anymore. The sheriff arrested her. She's in jail. And Uncle Robert? Your uncle didn't know. He thought you were really sick. He's very sorry, and very glad you're alive. Lily looked at me again, and I saw something in her eyes that broke my heart. Understanding. At 7 years old, she understood that the adults meant to protect her had failed, and only an animal, a rejected wolf with no reason to care, had saved her. Can Shadow stay? She asked Dr. Chen. For a little while. Then he needs to rest. He's been out there for 5 days without eating. But I didn't leave. Even when they tried to make me, I simply lay down by the door and refused to move. Eventually, they gave up and brought me a bed, an actual dog bed that some nurse donated. I slept outside Lily's room for 2 more days. On January 22nd, Sheriff Parks came to the hospital. I heard his voice in Lily's room, gentle but serious. Lily, I need to ask you some questions about your Aunt Patricia. Can you tell me about the medicine she gave you? Through the door, I heard Lily's small voice. Every morning, in milk. She said it would help me grow strong, but it made me feel sick and tired. Did she ever say why she was giving you this medicine? A long pause. Then, one time I heard her talking on the phone. She said she was doing it for Danny, that Uncle Michael let Danny die so someone had to pay. The silence that followed was heavy with implications. Sheriff Parks visited me next, crouching down to my level in the hallway. I don't know how you knew, Wolf, but you saved that little girl's life. The blood tests came back. Digitoxin, 4 times the therapeutic dose. Dr. Cole confessed to everything this morning, said Patricia Miller paid him to poison Lily, paid him to sign a false death certificate. He needed money for his own daughter's cancer treatment. The sheriff's hand hovered near my head, not quite touching. Patricia Miller's been charged with attempted murder. Dr. Cole with conspiracy and medical malpractice. They're looking at 25 years, maybe more. He stood, knees cracking. Robert Miller's not being charged. We don't believe he knew. He's destroyed, though. Lost his son years ago. Nearly lost his niece. Found out his wife's a murderer. I don't know how a man comes back from that. I didn't care about Robert's pain. Didn't care about Patricia's fate or Dr. Cole's daughter. I only cared about the little girl in room 304 who'd given me a name and taught me that not all humans were cruel. On January 25th, 10 days after the funeral that wasn't, Evelyn Brooks came to visit. She brought flowers and a stuffed wolf toy that made Lily laugh, the first time I'd heard her laugh, and it was the most beautiful sound. Lily, sweetheart, I need to tell you something. Evelyn sat on the edge of the bed, took Lily's small hand in her wrinkled one. I'm your grandmother. Your mother, Sarah, was my daughter. Lily's eyes went wide. Grandma? But where were you? I was sick for a long time. Your mother thought I couldn't take care of you, but I'm better now. I've been better for years. I didn't know you needed me until Shadow showed us all the truth. Evelyn's voice broke. I want to take care of you, if you'll let me. I want to give you a home, a real home. Can Shadow come? Evelyn smiled through tears. "Honey, Shadow saved your life. Of course he can come." She looked at me then, this old woman who'd believed when no one else would. "Thank you," she said simply. "Thank you for seeing what we missed. Thank you for being brave enough to make us look." On February 3rd, they discharged Lily from the hospital. She was weak, needed a wheelchair, but alive. The doctors said full recovery would take months, physical therapy, counseling for the trauma. But she would recover. As they wheeled her out to Evelyn's truck, Lily looked back at me. "Come on, Shadow. We're going home." Home. I'd had no home for 8 years. Now I had one, and it came with a little girl who'd given me purpose and an old woman who'd given me trust. I followed them to Evelyn's cabin on the edge of Glacier National Park. 10 acres of forest and meadow, a small house that smelled like pine and wood smoke. That first night, Lily slept in a bedroom that had once been her mother's. Evelyn tucked her in, kissed her forehead. "Your mother slept in this bed. Now you do. It's like having her back, just a little bit." "Is Mommy proud of Shadow?" Lily asked, her eyelids heavy. "Oh, sweetheart, your mother is in heaven, and she's so proud of both of you. So proud." After Evelyn left, Lily looked at me from the bed. I lay on a rug beside her, my old injury aching, exhaustion pulling at my bones. "Shadow, thank you for not giving up on me. Everyone else did, but you didn't." I thumped my tail once. It was all I had to give. Presence, loyalty, love without conditions. She fell asleep with her hand hanging off the bed, fingers buried in my fur. And for the first time in 8 years, I felt something I'd forgotten existed. Peace. But our story wasn't over. It was just beginning. Because in the days that followed, we'd discover that saving Lily from death was only the first chapter. Saving her from the nightmares that followed, that would take all of us. And 3 weeks later, when my injured leg finally gave out and I collapsed outside the cabin, it would be Lily's turn to save me. Spring came to Montana like a promise kept. The snow melted from Evelyn's 10 acres, revealing wildflowers that had waited all winter beneath the ice. Lily grew stronger every day. Her cheeks regained color, her laugh came easier, her steps grew steadier. By April, she no longer needed the wheelchair. By May, she was running through the meadow behind the cabin, her blonde hair streaming behind her like a flag of victory. I ran beside her, though my injured leg made me slower than I'd once been. The old bullet fragment that had lived in my bone for years had finally shifted during that desperate sprint down the hillside to the cemetery. Some days I could barely walk, but I didn't care. I'd trade 100 working legs to see Lily alive and laughing. The nightmares came anyway, as I'd known they would. 3 or 4 times a week, Lily would wake screaming, "I can't breathe, I'm in the box, it's dark." And every time I was there, pressing my head to her chest, letting her bury her face in my fur, staying until her breathing slowed and sleep took her again. Evelyn watched these midnight rituals with a mixture of gratitude and sorrow. "She's got a long road ahead," she told me one morning as we sat on the porch, Lily still sleeping inside. "Dr. Moss says it's PTSD, says some children never fully recover from this kind of trauma. But she's got you, Shadow, and she's got me. That's got to count for something." In February, Patricia Miller stood trial. I wasn't there. They don't allow wolves in courtrooms, but Evelyn attended every day and told Lily about it in age-appropriate terms. Patricia showed no remorse, Evelyn reported. stood in front of the judge and said, "Michael Reynolds killed my son. I took his daughter. It's justice." The judge, a woman named Marianne Oakes, responded, "That's not justice, Mrs. Miller. That's revenge against an innocent child. And revenge is a poison that destroys everyone it touches." 25 years without parole. Patricia was led away, still insisting she'd done the right thing, that Danny's death demanded payment. I wondered if she'd ever understand that killing Lily wouldn't bring Danny back, that grief, no matter how deep, doesn't justify murder. Dr. Cole received 20 years. Unlike Patricia, he broke down completely at sentencing, sobbing that he'd killed an innocent child to save his own daughter, and God would never forgive him. The irony, Evelyn explained, was that his daughter Emma went into remission the day of his trial. The experimental treatment had worked. She would live. But her father would spend the next 2 decades in prison for a murder that, ultimately, he hadn't needed to commit. "The road to hell," Evelyn said, shaking her head, "is paved with good intentions and terrible choices." Robert Miller never faced criminal charges, but he faced something worse, living with knowledge of what his wife had done. He visited once in March, bringing a photo album of Lily's mother and father. "These are your parents," he told Lily, his voice thick with regret. "Sarah and Michael. They loved you more than anything in the world. I should have told you more about them, should have loved you the way they would have wanted." Lily, sitting in the cabin's living room with me at her feet, looked at the photographs. Her mother laughing in sunshine, her father in marine dress uniform, serious but kind-eyed. One photo showed Michael with a German shepherd, a military working dog with intelligent eyes. "That's Ranger," Robert explained. "Your father's dog. He disappeared 2 years before Michael died. Your dad searched for weeks but never found him." Lily looked at me. I looked back. And something passed between us, an understanding that went beyond words. Ranger. The name meant nothing to me, but the image of that German shepherd stirred something deep in my bones. A memory of human kindness before the pack, before the rejection, before the 8 lonely years. But I wasn't Ranger. I was Shadow. And Shadow had saved Lily. That was all that mattered. "Uncle Robert?" Lily's small voice interrupted my thoughts. "I forgive you. You didn't know what Aunt Patricia was doing." Robert's face crumpled. "But I should have paid more attention. I was so lost in grief over Danny that I forgot to love you. I failed you." Lily walked over and hugged him. This 7-year-old child hugging a grown man who'd failed to protect her. "You can love me now," she said simply. And I, watching this moment of grace, felt something shift in my understanding of humans. They were capable of terrible things. Patricia had proved that. But they were also capable of forgiveness, of second chances, of love that transcended harm. Robert knelt and surprisingly reached out to me. I tensed. My instinct after 8 years was still to fear humans, but his hand was gentle, trembling as he touched my head. "Even the wolf forgives me," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "Thank you, Shadow. Thank you for being what I should have been." In March, the custody hearing took place. Evelyn petitioned the court for guardianship, presenting DNA evidence that confirmed she was Lily's maternal grandmother. The social worker's report was glowing. Stable home, loving environment, grandmother in good health despite previous medical scare. Judge Oakes called Lily to the stand, not under oath, just to ask her preference. "Lily, where do you want to live?" "With Grandma Evelyn," Lily said without hesitation. "Why is that?" "Because she believed Shadow when nobody else did. She saved my life. And she's my mommy's mommy. Mommy would want me with her." The judge smiled. "What about Shadow, the wolf?" Lily's voice went firm, unusually assertive for a child who'd been so quiet. "Shadow comes with me. He's family. If Shadow can't come, I don't want to go anywhere." There was legal precedent against keeping wild animals, but Dr. Margaret Flynn, the veterinarian who'd examined me after my collapse, testified that I showed no aggression toward humans except in defense of Lily. She also revealed something that made the courtroom murmur. DNA tests showed I was part wolf, part dog, a hybrid, the offspring of a domestic dog and a wild wolf. "We cross-referenced with military databases," Dr. Flynn explained. "Shadow appears to be descended from a military working dog named Ranger, who belonged to Captain Michael Reynolds. Ranger disappeared in 2022. Somehow he survived in the wild and bred with a wolf pack. Shadow carries both wild and domestic genes." I didn't understand all the science, but I understood the conclusion. Judge Oakes granted an exception. I could live with Evelyn and Lily as an emotional support animal and service dog, protected by law because I'd saved a life. Custody was granted on March 15th. We were officially a family. Life settled into a rhythm after that. Mornings, Lily fed me raw meat from the butcher, Dr. Flynn's orders. Afternoons, we walked through the forest, the three of us, old woman, young child, and aging wolf. Evenings, Lily did homework while I lay beside her. Nights, I slept on a rug in her room, ready to wake her from nightmares. Evelyn transformed too. Before Lily, she'd told me she woke with no purpose, watched television alone, waited to die. Now she woke to make breakfast, pack lunches, attend school events. She looked 10 years younger by summer. "Having purpose gives life," she told Pastor Williams during one of his visits. "I thought my purpose died with my husband 45 years ago, then with my daughter. But purpose doesn't die. It just changes shape, like love, like..." In September, Evelyn did something extraordinary. She opened Safe Haven Ranch, a small nonprofit on her 10 acres where elderly people came to care for rescued animals. The concept was simple: mutual healing. Lonely seniors caring for abandoned creatures. Everyone saving everyone else. The first residents were 3 widows and 1 widower, all in their 70s. They moved into small cabins Evelyn had built on the property. The animals came next: 2 senior dogs from the pound, an ancient horse named Buck, and 3 barn cats. Lily helped feed them after school. I supervised, having somehow become the alpha of this strange pack. Local news covered the story. Grandmother and granddaughter create healing sanctuary. Donations poured in, $40,000 in the first month. Enough to expand, enough to help more people, more animals. On Lily's 8th birthday in October, we threw a party at the ranch. 20 children from her new school attended. She'd transferred to a different district, a fresh start. They were amazed by me, this half-wolf, who let them pet him under supervision. "Is he really a wolf?" one boy asked, eyes wide. "Half wolf, half dog," Lily explained proudly. "He saved my life. He knew I was alive when everyone thought I was dead. He's the bravest, smartest, best friend anyone could have." Watching her surrounded by laughing children, eating cake and opening presents, I felt something I'd never experienced in 8 lonely years. Contentment. Not just survival. Not just purpose. But actual happiness. Evelyn watched too. tears streaming down her face. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "Sarah, Michael, I hope you can see this. Your daughter is thriving. She's loved. She's safe. And it's all because of a wolf who wouldn't give up." On Christmas Eve, we gathered in the cabin. Evelyn, Lily, me, Robert, who'd been invited to dinner, Pastor Williams, Dr. Flynn, and Jack Morrison from the hospital. A small family cobbled together from broken pieces. Evelyn said grace, "Lord, thank you for second chances. Thank you for bringing Lily back from death. Thank you for Shadow, who saw truth when we were blind. Thank you for this family, not born of blood, but of love. Amen." Lily added her own prayer. "And thank you for Shadow. He's the best Christmas present ever. Better than anything under the tree." After dinner, Lily and I went outside. Fresh snow was falling, soft and silent. She wore the red coat Evelyn had bought her, and her cheeks were pink with cold and happiness. "Shadow," she said, looking at me with those blue eyes so like her father's. "Do you remember the day you saved me? At the cemetery?" I looked at her steadily. Of course I remembered. I would remember until the day I died. "I'll never forget," she continued. "Never ever. You didn't give up on me when everyone else did. You fought for me. You're my hero." She hugged my neck, and I pressed my head against her shoulder. Behind us, the cabin glowed warm with light and laughter. Ahead, the forest stretched dark and beautiful. And between those two worlds, human and wild, I'd finally found where I belonged. Not in a pack of wolves who'd rejected me, not alone in the wilderness fighting to survive, but here, with a little girl who'd given me a name, an old woman who'd given me trust, and a purpose that made every scar, every cold night, every lonely year worth enduring. I was Shadow, guardian, protector, friend, and I was home. Sometimes the greatest love stories aren't between people. They're between broken souls who refuse to give up on each other. Shadow was a wolf rejected by his pack, wandering alone for 8 years. Lily was a little girl who lost everyone she loved. And Evelyn? She was a grandmother who thought her purpose died decades ago. But here's the truth that changes everything. It's never too late to matter again. It's never too late to be someone's hero. Evelyn believed a wolf when logic said not to. That choice saved a life. How many times have we ignored our instincts because they seemed foolish? How many times have we stayed silent when something felt wrong? Shadow couldn't speak, but he refused to give up. He showed us that loyalty doesn't need words, it needs action, and that sometimes the family we build from broken pieces is stronger than the one we're born into. This story reminds us that purpose doesn't retire, love doesn't expire, and second chances can come at any age, in any form, even as a gray wolf standing guard in the snow. What's one time your instinct told you something nobody else believed? Have you ever received a second chance that changed everything? Share your story in the comments below. We'd love to hear how you found your purpose again.